Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another awesome episode of Unscripted. As always, I am your co host, Mike from Inside the Pylons, and I'm joined, as every week, with my awesome, amazing co host, Jeffrey from Only Talk Sports.
Thanks, man. Glad to be here. We got some great things to talk about. Some XFL, some March Madness. Cannot wait to get into it.
Absolutely. So, as what's become ritual for us, let's talk XFL Week in Review. So, this one does not surprise me at all. I think that we all kind of knew, in a sense, something like this was going to happen. I mean, I predicted 40-6, so I wasn't really that far off. Brandon Silvers, I believe, looked great, or at least good. Overall, Houston has definitely created separation in the South, and it looks great to see that Houston will be in the playoffs, because at this point, we're approaching the halfway point of the season already, which is crazy to think about. And Houston is looking really good and unstoppable at this point.
Yeah, I can't remember what I predicted. I think 27-10. So I was, a little more favorable to Orlando, but they did outscore what we both thought. But Houston was unstoppable, like you said. They were putting up points. It just clearly shows Orlando's not very good on either side of the ball. As much as people want to talk about the offense, their defense isn't very good either. And Houston is dominating on both sides of the ball. And if they continue to play at this high of a level, then they have a really good chance to maybe win the whole thing in the XFL this year. I mean, there's other teams as well that could win. Houston's not the runaway favorite, but they're playing really good football. Like you said, Brandon Silvers is playing well. Their defense is getting stops. But like you said, no one really thought this game would be close, and Houston got a comfortable win as expected.
Absolutely. So our next one is the Snooze Fest game of the week. Seattle Sea Dragons and the San Antonio Brahmas. The major thing out of this one is congrats to Ben DiNucci for being the first XFL QB to reach 1,000 passing yards. That is incredible, and it shows how pass-heavy Seattle's offense is when it only took you 4 weeks to do it.
It's impressive for sure. I mean, you look at – that's why when we did our XFL quarterback power rankings, I had them high. Even though you look at the fact that they are a pass-heavy offense, Ben DiNucci's putting up stats, and yes, he is a little turnover prone, but when you're throwing the ball so much, you're going to have picks. And you're going to, make more mistakes the more you put the ball in the air. But I think overall he's played really well. Seattle is a team that could be 4-0 if they hadn't made some small mistakes in the first 2 weeks. I mean, they are a solid team. Their defense is starting to play better. And their offense, is pretty solid. I think going for 3 is a problem still, and that's what hurt them in the first 2 games, because they lost by a few points that if they didn't go for 3 and went for 1 or 2, they could have won. But I do think they're a solid team, and if they continue to play like they are, then they could be a team that rises up the XFL ladder as the season goes down the stretch. I think San Antonio is a solid team, but they did not have a good game in this one at all, and they're going to have to find a way to regroup and get back on track, or they could be a team that starts to slip further down the standings.
Absolutely. All right. Now for everyone, including myself's favorite or other favorite team, Mr. AJ McCarron. led St. Louis Battlehawks. Man, that's got a better ring to it than Jordan Teamu led St. Louis Battlehawks. This was just incredible. St. Louis led basically from the jump, and AJ looked pretty good. The big thing here, surprisingly, was not the play on the field. The attendance for this game was 38,310, I believe, which is not a Spring League record, but I believe it's an XFL record. Spring League record is like over 73,000 back in 1984. So for all you goofy, oh my God, it's a record. But it's a modern day record, but it's not an overall record. Do your history.
Yeah, this game right here, I think if you look at St. Louis, as we both mentioned, this was a big game to see if they could bounce back, from the tough loss they suffered last week to DC, or the week before, this past week to DC. Could they bounce back and get a win? Or would they start, starting to lose now and slip down the standings? But they cruised to victory in this one. I mean, it was a relatively easy victory. Arlington, I think they're a team that's definitely shown that they have a lot of flaws. They got that win over Vegas in the first week of the season because of the fact of Louis Perez's 2 pick sixes. But since that, Arlington's really struggled. And they, even when they won the one game that they have won since that game, they just do not look like a team that's trending in the right direction. And I think that you look at St. Louis, they're a team that has A.J. McCarron. They have the star power in the quarterback. Their defense played much better in this one than they did against D.C., and I do think that they are one of the better teams in this league. They definitely, show that they can bounce back from a loss, and they have the fan support, and they're going to be a tough out at St. Louis. And Arlington with, Bob Stoops at head coach is going to have to regroup because they're definitely, along with, the 2 worst teams in the league in Vegas and Orlando, they look like one of the worst teams, even though they do have 2 wins. They're definitely struggling on the field right now. And I think they have some good players, but they're going to have to get some things figured out or they're going to keep losing. But it was a relatively easy win for St. Louis for sure.
All right. And to close out the week, the biggest disappointment of the week.
For you, for sure.
I think DC's kind of had it easy, having an easy road game and having most of their games at home. So their record does not necessarily surprise me. And the fact that 2 of the games have been against Vegas. And just now knowing that Vegas straight up stinks like the trash.
Well, their field does for sure. I thought maybe their play was better, but we'll see.
I mean, it's seriously coming down to the Tank Bowl in a couple of weeks.
The most anticipated matchup in XFL history. This game right here, if you look at both these teams, I mean, like you said, DC, they've had a fairly easy road, even though they are 4-0, and when you're undefeated, that is impressive, but they don't look like a team that maybe should be 4-0 or is one of the best teams in the league. Even though they are playing well, they're going to have to prove it against better competition. If they can do that, especially on the road, like at St. Louis and at some of these other tough, places they're going to have to play, then we'll know for sure DC is a really good team. They have been impressive so far going 4-0, but they will have tougher games down the road to really show and test their mettle, whether they are a top team in the XFL. Their dual quarterback system is tough to stop because both quarterbacks are athletic, both can run. But in a crunch time situation, when it's 3rd and long and the play breaks down, they can't run and they have to make a pass, that's when it's going to be tough for DC. But overall, right now they've been cruising to victory. But it's going to be really interesting to see how they play against some of the opponents down the stretch. That's going to really show how good they are. But with Vegas, you had Brett Hundley, who was playing pretty well in the game before this past week, and then you barely play him in this one, and Luis Perez plays. And I thought he actually had some good moments in this game. I thought Luis Perez played fairly well, but overall, there's a lot of issues going on right now with Vegas. Their defense is not really stopping teams. Their offense is struggling. They can't get wins. And unfortunately, when you're a team in a league like this and you're already 0-4 like Orlando and Vegas, it's really hard to get the morale back to start getting some wins. It's tough. You want to try and you want to get things going, but sometimes you just, as a team, you psychologically, you know you're already toast. You're not going to be able to come back to make the playoffs, so you just kind of throw in the towel. But hopefully for Vegas and Orlando, that neither team do, maybe they can get a win or two down the stretch. Like you said, when they play each other, somebody's got to win.
Yep. All right. So now for everyone's favorite segment every week for XFL coverage. So on Thursday, we've got undefeated best team in the South, in my opinion, because of the undefeated teams left. Best team in the entire league. Screw you, DC. Again, in Houston against Seattle. As much as it was awesome to see DiNucci set the record, or not set the record, be the first quarterback to reach 1,000 yards. Gosh, I can't even talk. I'm sorry, but I'm glad you got it last week because your yardage is going to be chump change this week. Houston defense looks great. It's always looked great. It continues to look great. The offense is just chugging along. I believe they don't have Max Borghi right now. And they still look good. I mean, you still put up 44 on Orlando, but you and me could probably tag team and still put up almost 50 by ourselves on Orlando. I'm going to go Houston 34, Seattle 18.
Now, I will say that looking at this game, there is the potential for an upset because it's at Seattle. That makes it tough, and they've been pretty good at home. And the fact that Ben DiNucci has passed 1,000 yards passing. He's played, really good football. And you've got Josh Gordon. So Seattle is dangerous, and they've been playing better. But to your point, Houston has been elite on both sides of the ball. Their offense and their defense has been really hard to stop. I think if you look at Seattle, the way they're going to win this game is if Ben DiNucci throws for over 350 yards and 3 touchdowns. He has a big game. And somehow Seattle can rattle Houston because Houston's had a relatively easy run of getting wins. Like if they get punched in the mouth a little bit, and they're down 7 and it's in the 4th, how are they going to respond? Are they going to slip up because they've never been down before? So I think all those things are going to come into play. I think that if Houston gets a lead in this one, they will definitely run away with it like they have been. But if Seattle can stay in the game, or even better yet for them, take the lead, I think they could put some pressure on Houston and potentially spring the upset. But I will go with Houston to stay undefeated. I do think it's going to be really close, though. I'm going to take Houston to beat Seattle 31-28.
All right. So I'm just going to go ahead and go first from now on because, as we discussed last night, everything's kind of like it's obvious at this point who's going to, besides the one below the one we're about to talk about, it's kind of obvious who's picking who. Because
I can go first here.
Separation.
I can go first. I don't matter. Try to make it interesting still. Like we don't know. I can go first. So
Okay.
you got this game right here. You've got St. Louis. You've got DC. You've got two teams that are playing at a high level. DC's undefeated. St. Louis is one loss. But to a lot of people, DC is not as good, as the record would indicate. They're a little overrated, even though they have won all their games. I do think they're a solid team, however. I do. I especially think with the two quarterback system, they're starting to get that figured out, and they know when to use De'Aaron King and when to use Jordan Teamu. But St. Louis has a actual quarterback in A.J. McCarron. And this game's at St. Louis. And you have the crowd. Like you said, there was a lot of fans at their game last week. I think that's going to make a big difference. Overall, I think that DC can get this win because they're a really confident team. And when a team's confident, it makes you even more dangerous because they are undefeated and they're going to want to stay that way. But I think that St. Louis is going to want to avenge the earlier loss to them. I think that St. Louis, with their home field advantage, is going to find a way to get this one done. I think St. Louis will win 27-23. I think that DC can definitely get this win and sweep St. Louis, but I do think St. Louis is not going to want to let that happen. So 27-23 St. Louis.
Yes, I can see it happening, but it's less likely. The fact that you have St. Louis refs, not DC refs. It's in St. Louis. St. Louis is out for blood. DC is fake good in the sense that they should have at least one loss at this point. And I think A.J. McCarron, Anthony Betch, and everybody's just ready to punch some guys in the mouth. Literally and hypothetically. I have a close game like the last one. I'm going to go Battlehawks 36-30. All right. The most anticipated crapper that we have ever seen. We got the Orlando Guardians. What do you mean Guardians? There's nothing to guard. And the Vegas Vipers. I think they lost their bite by prematurely biting somebody.
And it's on that field.
Oh my gosh. It's on a cashless field.
And it's on FX.
Well, it's on FX because of the tournament.
Well, I mean, for sure, I get that. But still, I mean, that's not going to help with the ratings for this game.
Nope.
Oh, man.
I think Orlando gets it done. I think they figure out a way to play on Cashman Field and pull away, honestly. Vegas just overall stinks more, in my opinion. It seems like they just can't get into a groove anywhere. They can't really play anywhere. Whereas Orlando has shown glimmers of we could be dangerous. So I'm going to go Orlando Guardians 30-10.
That's actually a little shocking. That's very interesting right there. I mean, you look at this game, both these teams are bad. I mean, that's clear. There's no way around it. But you do look at some of the stats, though. If you look at Vegas, they've been outscored 102-70. That's by 32 points. Orlando's been outscored 117-49. They've been outscored by 68 points. So that, to me, suggests Orlando's way worse. Now, I know it depends on the opponent. Vegas, maybe you could say, has played some easier opponents, but still, I mean, not really. They've had to play some tough teams early on as well. I think if you look at Vegas, I mean, they got the better quarterback play. Louis Perez and Brett Hundley are better than Paxton Lynch and anything else that Orlando has. They brought in Quentin Flowers, but he can't play for whatever reason right now. And DeAndre Francois, they won't play. Quentin Dormity's still in, the injury reserve list or whatever, basically barely on the team after what's happened with him. So you've got two teams that just have bad vibes. The field's bad, but I mean, it is Vegas' home field.
Yep.
for whatever that's worth. You will have some Vegas fans that are still going to make the trek out to watch their 0-4 football team hopefully win in the Tank Bowl. But I do think that looking at this game, I just think Vegas is a little better. I think Orlando's really bad. I think they have a good wide receiving core, but they don't have good quarterback play. And even though technically Paxton Lynch has played a little bit better last couple weeks, it doesn't mean he's played well. And they've never played on that bad of a field. They're playing horribly on their own field, and then they're going to go out there and play on that bad field. It's probably going to make them play even worse. I'm actually going to go with Vegas 17-14 over Orlando. And if Orlando wins, it'll give you a shot to catch up a bit in the standings. But I'm gonna go Vegas 17-14. So right here, you've got the last game. You've got Arlington and San Antonio. I think that the XFL this week, technically, these games seem to be a bit more interesting, actually. You look at last week, and the games were really easy to pick. I think this week's are a bit tougher. I think the games are a bit more wishy-washy. Like DC St. Louis, I could see people picking DC. Houston, Seattle, I could even imagine people picking Seattle. Orlando, Vegas, that's a wash, really, at this point. And Arlington, San Antonio is a tough game as well. I think there's a lot of games that are actually pretty tough to pick, which could make for more intrigue and hopefully way more eyeballs somehow watching these games this week. But I think if you look at this game, Arlington is not impressive at all right now. I mean, they are 2-2, but they've been outscored by 19 points. And then you look at not Seattle, but you look at San Antonio, they're 1-3, but they've only been outscored by 3. So you look at that. San Antonio is a worse record than Arlington, but they've been outscored by fewer points. That's insane. You would think that Arlington being 2-2, that they would have a better, points for them versus points for the opponent, but they've been outscored by 19, whereas San Antonio has been only outscored by 3. They've been really competitive. They've barely lost most of their games, and the one game they won, they were pretty impressive in. So I think that fact, plus you also have this game being at San Antonio, Jack Cohn at quarterback has been playing better than Drew Plitt or Kyle Sloter. I'm going to go with San Antonio to beat Arlington 21-18.
All right. Yes, even though with everything you've said, I still have faith in Slaughter. Slaughter is learning the playbook still. He's proven he can make the reads and make the throws and lead the team to victory and on good drives and all that. Granted, Slaughter hasn't really been tested yet. I don't think this is really a test in a sense of like it's not St. Louis, it's not Houston. So I think Arlington really has a chance here. I'll go ahead and go Arlington 24, San Antonio 23.
So I got a 2-game lead on you right now. But if you get both of these games right, it's a tie game again. Both of us have a tie record. But if I get both these games right, I'll have a 4-game lead, and that might be too much to overcome for sure. So I'm giving you a chance here. I had a feeling you'd pick when you picked Orlando. I went Vegas, and I had a feeling you'd pick Arlington because of Sloter. So I mean, I'm giving you an opportunity of a lifetime to catch back up here. This is it. It could definitely happen, but I'm definitely looking forward to these games. They should be really fun, and especially now with these next 2 games, whoever wins is very important for the standings and everything. We're gonna have to figure out like our exact record because I know I'm 2 games ahead, but I don't know like our exact record overall. I have to like go through all the games again and see what our exact record is. But yeah, I got a 2-game lead, so you can tie it all up. So it's going to be really interesting. Jeff, hey Jeff, he says, "Hey guys, good stuff for sure." And hopefully the XFL provides some good action this weekend. They need it. We're starting on Thursday anyway.
Oh yeah. All right. Now let's talk about everything that everybody is into at the moment, you included. After your streams past couple nights. All right, so the first region we're going to break down in March Madness because it's March Madness. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba-da-ba, is the South region, the region dominated by Alabama. I don't see any surprise here with Alabama. Obviously, for me, I would take Alabama in that first one. I think that we're going to see another over 100-point performance by Alabama in their first game, even though Corpus Christi could sort of make it tight. I just think Corpus Christi is not built to compete and run with Alabama, whereas, something like the 8-9 matchup below them with Maryland, West Virginia, I think that one you're probably looking at a closer game in itself.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, really, there's not really any shockers in the region itself as far as what stands out to me. Usually, I would say pay attention to the 5-12 San Diego State Charleston, because I do think Charleston could pull off an upset. The 6-11 is interesting to me as well, because I currently have no faith in Creighton, because they seem to not do well as of late in the bigger games.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so, all right, let's see. So, I'm going to go Bama. Big. I'll go West Virginia. Give me Charleston. Virginia, obviously. I go Wolfpack. Baylor, that's an easy, in my opinion, that's an easy pickup victory for Baylor. That should be easily domination. I'm going to skip the 7-10, go to the 2-15, and I'll take Zona. The 7-10 for me would be the interesting one. I already filled out 2 brackets, and so I've gone one bracket with one bracket with the other. So for me, this is kind of a tiebreaker unless I get bored and do another bracket today. I really think Utah State has the better potential and bigger chance to pull off the upset here. So I think I'm going to go with the Utes. So, all right.
I'm trying to remember what I picked when I did when I basically leaned. I didn't really necessarily pick, but when me and Austin did the Sunday night show, we went up through all these games, and I kind of in a roundabout way leaned toward a team. So I think this team has a better chance. I know, obviously, I picked Alabama, and at the time over either team, it didn't matter. Alabama should easily win. You never know, upsets can happen, but Alabama, I don't think is going to be Virginia and lose to a UMBC like that. So Alabama, I went with West Virginia, if I recall. I lean that way. I think Huggins, has a really good defensive team. They play really tough basketball. They're good on the glass. I think that they will definitely, give Maryland some fits with their physicality, even though the Big Ten is a physical conference as well. But I think the Big 12 is even more physical. So I think they have a really good shot. I think San Diego State, has a really good shot to beat Charleston. Charleston's a team that is very good. They're a very disciplined team. They only have 3 losses. Yes, they played in a weak conference. That's just the way it is. They play in a really small conference, but they dominated it, only losing to Hofstra, who beat Rutgers in the NIT last night. So, yes, Charleston is good, and I think overall they have a really good shot to get the upset. This is a really good matchup, a great game, but I do think San Diego State has a lot more firepower. Matt Bradley's a great player. Brian Dutcher's a great coach. The Mountain West was really tough this year, and I think that San Diego State's going to have a lot of, experience in these tough matchups against teams like Utah State, Nevada, New Mexico, Boise State that the Mountain West provided this year for San Diego State to be able to hold off Charleston. And the next game, you got Virginia Furman. That could be an upset game. Furman is a good team, playing some of their best basketball that they've played in a long time. And they're really happy to be in March Madness because of the fact that they got beat by Chattanooga the year before on a last-second 3 and missed the tournament. But this year they got revenge on Chattanooga. Virginia's offense is horrible. But Tony Bennett, he's going to have his team playing great defense. They're going to try to slow down Furman. And if they can stay ahead, then they can win. But if they fall behind at any point in this game by more than 5 points, they're going to lose because they're not going to be able to come back. Their offense is horrible, and they won't be able to come back in this game just like when they played UMBC. So it's all going to come down to Virginia. Can they stay ahead? Can they impose their will on Furman? And if they can, then I think they can win. But if they don't, they could lose. Then you've got Creighton, NC State. I think that you look at NC State, they're a team a lot of people feel should not be in the NCAA tournament because they lost to Clemson 3 times, and one time they lost by 36 points to Clemson, but Clemson missed the tournament. And the only reason they missed the tournament is because they lost to Loyola Chicago and Louisville and South Carolina. So they had some bad losses. NC State really didn't, which is why the committee let them in because they really value the quad 1 losses versus the quad 4. Clemson just had too many of those. But Creighton is a team that, they faded a bit down the stretch, but they're really good. They're really talented. In the preseason, they were a top 10 team for a reason, but then Ron Kalkbrenner suffered an injury, which made them, have a lot of losses early on in the season. And then they started to play better basketball, but then the Big East grind got to them late, and they were struggling. But I think overall they're still a really good team. They're way better than NC State. NC State can win because Terquavian Smith and Jarkel Joyner are great guards, but Ron Kalkbrenner is going to be a problem for NC State because he's 7-1, and NC State is going to have no one that can guard him. As long as he has a 20 and 15 game and Creighton's hitting shots, they should win. So I think they have a better shot to win. Baylor over UC Santa Barbara is like Alabama as well. I think they should easily win. UC Santa Barbara is better than Texas A&M Corpus Christi. That's why they're the 14th seed. But as long as Baylor plays well, they do have some injuries on their team right now, which could make it interesting. But as long as they can, relatively have their full team for the most part healthy, then they should have a great chance to win. Missouri, Utah State. I like Utah State as well. Missouri's good, and Dennis Gates has done a great job in his first season as the Missouri Tigers head coach. He's definitely having them playing better basketball than they have in the past, but Utah State's a really good team. The Mountain West was a great conference this year that ranked better than the Pac-12 and the ACC this year in the net and a lot of other rankings. So tough league. Utah State played really good basketball in the Mountain West, so I could definitely see them beat Missouri. I like their chances a lot. And then you look at Arizona Princeton. I think that Arizona, as long as they play a B-level game, they should easily get by Princeton. So it's a really good bracket with a lot of great games for sure.
So, are you basically saying you're going Furman and Creighton?
I'm basically saying I think Virginia's going to get it done. I think they will win, but it's one of those things where I don't trust them at all. And if they fall behind by more than 5 points, they will not win. I have the least confidence in that game, actually. Of all the teams I'm leaning in this bracket, Alabama, West Virginia, San Diego State, Virginia, Creighton, Baylor, Utah State, and Arizona, I have the least faith in Virginia. And I know that's surprising, but they're a horrible offensive team. They cannot score. If Furman gets ahead by 5+ points, game over. It's completely game over.
Our next region is the Midwest.
Oh, yeah.
top seed Houston Cougars. Obviously, we've only seen one 116 upset. Houston, overall, in my opinion, is just dominant across the board on the floor. So I think, without a doubt, the Cougars will get it done here. We got a Big Ten SEC matchup between Iowa and Auburn. Both mid-tier, mid-level schools here. SEC, it just means more as it keeps getting shoved down my throat. So I'm going to go with the Tigers here. I'm not really confident in that. Miami and Drake at the 5-12 here. I could see a potential upset here, but I think I'm going to lean towards the Canes on this one. Oh, man, the one I never want to pick. The 4-13 matchup here. I like Indiana. Everyone sees potential for an upset. I'm covered because all of my brackets I have IU. So for the importance of the show, I am sorry, sir, but I'm going with the upset here. I'm going to go Kent State.
How could you have IU in all of your brackets, but you're going Kent State?
Because my brackets are my brackets. This pick'em is more important.
So do you literally think Indiana or Kent State's going to win in your opinion? Like who you actually believe? Like who's your gut feeling on this?
I can see the upset, but I think your boys are going to run away with it. Especially if Jalen Hood-Schifino and my all-time favorite Indiana player, TJB, run just get hot, go on a freaking hot streak.
Mm-hmm.
Iowa State, and as we discovered last night, it's actually going to be Pitt. I'm split on both of my brackets with this matchup. I went play-in winner, and I went Iowa State.
Mm-hmm.
So to give a definitive, I will go Cyclones. I know that they have had struggles lately. And a lot over the season, but I think they can put together a better game than we saw last night from Pittsburgh. If Iowa State gets hot, I think they have the potential to run away with it, create separation. In the 3-14 matchup, I'm sorry, but Kennesaw State, who is Kennesaw State? Has anyone ever heard of Kennesaw State? I have. It's a total joke just because of football. I have heard of them, but this is basketball, and they're going against Xavier. I don't give them a chance at all against Xavier. Another SEC Big Ten matchup in the 7-10 spot here in the Midwest. We've got A&M and Penn State. This time I cannot go against my conference. Give me Penn State in this one. I think they really have the potential to pull off the upset. It doesn't surprise me, though, if A&M does run away with it. Mm-hmm. But to lock it in here, I'm going to go with Penn State. And the 2-15, as much as I don't have faith in Texas, this could be your possible 2-15 upset if you get one this year. I think Texas does enough to hold on to this sucker and get to the next round.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm trying to remember who I picked. Basically leaned anyway when I did Austin. I'm going to have to go back and look. I'll have to get back with you. But right now, what I can remember, Houston, obviously. I mean, Marcus Sasser, his injury is why they lost to Memphis for sure. He should be back for the tournament. But even if he's not playing at his highest level or at 100%, then Houston still should win this game, though. They're going to need him to be completely healthy in the later rounds. Iowa-Auburn's a great game. And I had weird logic for this one because last year, Iowa won the Big Ten tournament. Last year, they beat Purdue. And you look at Clint Moses says Pitt beat Mississippi State. My bracket's perfect. So far, so good. But you look at Iowa, they won the Big Ten tournament last year, and they beat Purdue. But what happened to them? They lost in the first round against Richmond. They're a team that's up and down. They get hot from three and they win, but then they get cold and they lose. Well, Iowa just lost to Ohio State in the Big Ten tournament, so they had a bad game. The way I'm looking at it is that this game they're going to play well. This game they're going to have a bounce back game because they're up and down. So since they had a low, this could be, their high again. I lean to Iowa. I think they'll have a good bounce back game. I don't think they're going to go far in the tournament because they'll get cold again. But since they ended the season badly, I think they'll turn it around in this one. Miami Drake, I definitely agree with you. Drake's good. I mean, they have got really good players. The head coach on the team for Drake has his son on the team as well, and his son is a really good player. Tucker DeVree, he's a great player, and I think that he could give Miami some fits, but Miami's got great guard play. You've got Isaiah Wong, you've got Nigel Pack, Norchad Omier, even though he's an undersized center, basically a forward playing center. He's a great player. Miami just has really good players overall, and as long as they play a good game, they should win. But Drake could get the upset, but I do think Miami will find a way. Indiana, Kent State. This one has a lot of intrigue that a lot of people don't know about because the head coach of Kent State basketball used to be an assistant coach at Indiana back in the day when Kelvin Sampson, who's the Houston coach, was at Indiana when Indiana got in trouble for all the recruiting violations. So there's potential bad blood here for Indiana, and they know about it. They know that the assistant coach of Indiana, who's now the Kent State coach, is part of the reason Indiana got in trouble way back when. So I think that if you look at Indiana, they want to get this win, to show that they're back as a program, because after that happened in the Kelvin Sampson era with Rob Senderoff, who was the Kent State head coach, Indiana got gutted as a program. The NCAA went after him. They got in trouble big time, and they fell apart as a program. But I think that now that they're got Mike Woodson, they're back on track, and they're playing against their former assistant coach. That's what happened at that time. I think that Indiana's going to play really hard in this game. Jalen Hood-Schifino and Trace Jackson Davis are both going to have great games. And as long as they can get some contributions from somebody else, Miller Kopp, Trey Galloway, Tamar Bates, Race Thompson, just some other player to at least score 10, I think Indiana will win. Now, Kent State could get the upset, and Indiana will definitely have a bad taste in their mouth losing their former assistant. But I do think Indiana will find a way. I don't know how far they'll go in the tournament, but a win is the start, and maybe they can go far. Iowa State Pitt's a good game, but Pitt was not too impressive last night. I mean, neither team really was. I mean, Pitt did hit some good shots, but they were missing a lot of free throws, and they were really sloppy with the basketball in the second half. Mississippi State was really sloppy as well. Mississippi State took a lot of bad shots. They had a great look at the end and should have hit that shot. But I do think that Pitt is a solid team, but they just don't look like a team that could really hang with a team like Iowa State, especially if Iowa State's knocking shots down. If Iowa State's hitting their threes, which with Jaron Holmes, Gabe Kalsher, they're knocking shots down. They're almost unstoppable. But if they can get cold from the outside like Iowa does at times, then I do see a chance for Pitt to win. But I do think Iowa State's more talented and they'll find a way. So I'm leaning them. To your point about Kennesaw State with Xavier, Kennesaw State a few years ago was an 8-win team. They were horrible. But the head coach for Kennesaw State's done a great job. He took them from last year a 13-win team to now they're a 26-win team. So it's amazing what he's done. The head coach for Kennesaw State has massively turned around the program, deserves a lot of props, a very underrated coach who probably in the next year or two will be getting a Power 5 head coaching job. That's how good of a job he's done with Kennesaw State. But to your point, I do think they don't have enough firepower. They're a great story. He's done a great job because Kennesaw State was a program that was in the toilet a couple years ago. They were horrible. But they're a lot better now. He's done a great job, but I do think Xavier's going to have way too much offense for him. They knock in 10 threes and Xavier will easily win. But again, Kennesaw State is a great story, and look for the head coach of Kennesaw State to be getting a Power 5 job soon if he keeps having Kennesaw State play as well as he is. Texas A&M, Penn State. Texas A&M is a good team. The SEC, was a good conference this year in basketball, but I do think that they potentially had some cracks in their conference. Some of the teams weren't playing as well as they could have. But I think Texas A&M definitely was a surprise team. Buzz Williams did a really good job. One of his better seasons at Texas A&M, probably his best ever, and probably one of his best ever as a head coach. Virginia Tech, he had some good seasons, but this was a really good year for him, and they played really well. But Penn State, they've been coming on strong as of late. And yes, they lost to Purdue, but that was their 4th game in 4 days, and they only lost by 2 in the title game and had a really good shot to win. If Penn State's able to knock some threes down, now that they can get their legs back underneath them, all like they were because they were tired in the title game against Purdue, I think Penn State has a great chance to win. I think Penn State has a better chance to win than Texas A&M. And Texas, Colgate. Texas is a team that I've just never had a lot of confidence in. I know a lot of people are picking them to win it all or go to the Final Four, but Texas is a team that always loses early in the tournament. But I do think that Texas will find a way to beat Colgate. I think that Colgate's really good. They've been in the tournament several times before. People always talk about that toothpaste is in the tournament. Yes, toothpaste is in the tournament yet again. Colgate is a really solid team. They play a really good brand of basketball, if you know what I mean. And overall, I think Colgate is, a team that could get an upset, but Texas should play well enough to get the win. I think that they are, really good with their guard play, and I think that Rodney Terry's done a great job to keep the team together after the Chris Beard situation, and they should win this game. But you never know; an upset could happen. Jeff says Indiana will win. You never know. I mean, I'm a little, not confident in that one. I think I could see a Kent State win, but I think Indiana's going to give it all they got.
So, I know for whatever reason you don't want to be committal. But So are you saying Houston, Miami, Indiana, Iowa State, Xavier, Penn State, and Texas?
Texas, Penn State, Xavier, Iowa State, Indiana, Miami, Iowa, Houston.
Okay.
There you go. Those are my leans.
What's a lean?
I'm leaning that way. Like if I was doing a bracket, those are who I'd put in it.
Okay.
Like I'm leaning. It's like I'm not confident really in hardly anything. I mean, like Houston for sure, but like in Iowa, Auburn. I mean, really, are we really confident in that one? I mean, there's no way. That's why brackets are busted. I mean, there's no way.
All right, the West is next. All right, so in the 116, you got Kansas and Howard. I mean, come on, who in the world is going to beat KU in the first round? Kansas, obviously. Another Big Ten SEC matchup. Man, they really just want to spit in our face. I'm going to go Arkansas here because Illinois is good. I do think it'll be a close one. It really is a toss-up considering it is 8-9. But I think Arkansas can get it done. They do have a little more firepower and power down low than Illinois, in my opinion. This 5-12 matchup, I love VCU. No, Will, it has nothing to do with you. I was a fan way before I met you.
Shaka Smart.
Shaka Smart, baby. Going against the Gales of St. Mary's. That's a toss-up for me. I could see either way. But VCU doesn't have Shaka Smart, so I'm going to go St. Mary's, which I believe is a tiebreaker because I think I went 1-1 in both of my brackets. UConn, Iona. I have no faith in UConn. This is not the old Kemba Walker UConn that we're used to seeing. Yes, Iona is small. You need a 4-13 upset. I'm going to go with this one. I'm going to go Iona. TCU taking on, we still don't know because that game is tonight between Arizona State and Nevada. Personally, I don't think it's going to matter in the end. I think TCU is going to come out with it. They could be upset depending on who it is. If it's Nevada, I don't think so. If it's Arizona State, there is potential there that they could be upset. Gonzaga against Grand Canyon, that's a joke. Give me the Zags. Northwestern, Boise State, you need a 7-10 upset. Give me the good old Broncos. Even though, yes, Northwestern could win the game, I could see them winning the game. Give me the Broncos. I like the Broncos more than I like Northwestern, even though I like both schools. Northwestern does have the key power, the key players to make the right kind of plays. And just like pretty much all these games, it's going to depend on who creates separation, ball control, rebounds, and whose stars can break away. UCLA, UNC Asheville, that's just a joke. It should be anyway. Because UCLA should be the Pac-12 champs, but they're not. But I think they're going to be out for blood. So give me UCLA in a stomping mud hole.
Clint Moses, he thinks Boise State with the upset as well. Yeah, this is a good bracket, a region of the bracket anyway. A lot of interesting matchups. Kansas over Howard, like you said, should not be close. Howard is a team that has not made the NCAA tournament since 1992, so it's a good story for them to be back in the tournament. But their tournament stay should be short. Kansas has so much firepower. Grady Dick, Jalen Wilson, DeJuan Harris. It doesn't matter. Just overall, their roster talent is way better than Howard's. And Kansas would literally have to play a D- game to have any shot of losing. I don't think they will. I think Kansas should easily win, but you never know. But they should easily win. Arkansas, Illinois is a good game. I think it is a good game because both teams have NBA talent on the team. I think you look at a team like Illinois that has Matthew Mayer and they have Dane Dange and they have Terrence Shannon, all transfers from the Big 12 who can play high-level basketball, especially Matthew Mayer and Terrence Shannon are both potential NBA draft prospects. I think they're both really solid players that can get hot in a hurry, so they have a chance to win. But Arkansas has Nick Smith back off of his injury. He's going to be a top 10 pick in the draft. Anthony Black could be a top 10 pick in the draft as well. Both really talented guards for Arkansas. Arkansas is a deep team. And yes, they lost Trevon Brazile for the season. That was a tough loss for Arkansas, but they still have a really deep team. Eric Musselman's a great coach, and I think Arkansas has more talent than Illinois. And as long as they play a solid game, they should be favored to win, have a really good shot to win. I think Arkansas is a team that could potentially give Kansas fits so they can get by Illinois because of the fact that that's how talented they actually are. You look at St. Mary's and VCU, I think that's a really solid game, between two teams that are obviously not Power 5 teams or Power 6 if you include the Big East. They're both, quality teams. VCU really came on strong late. St. Mary's had a great run for a while, but then they obviously got blown out to Gonzaga in the West Coast Conference title game, which was not a good end of their season, not a good look. But I still think St. Mary's is a solid team. They just, for whatever reason, could not let their style of play affect Gonzaga. They let Gonzaga run all over them. If they can let their style of play affect VCU, then I think St. Mary's has a better chance to win than VCU. But if VCU can really, get their offense going and speed the game up, then that will put St. Mary's in a tough spot. But if St. Mary's can, put their will on VCU, slow the game down, make it a defensive battle, I think St. Mary's has a better chance to win. You look at UConn and Iona, the other Gales, Iona Gales with Rick Pitino. And maybe it could be his final game as head coach if he does take the St. John's job or another job. But Iona is a really good team, and he's done a great job coaching them. He's made the tournament already before with Iona, and they have the potential to get this win. Now, UConn, they might not be Kemba Walker UConn, but they have good players. I mean, they have Jordan Hawkins, Donovan Klingman. They have good players. They have guys that are really, talented and could be in the NBA. Now, they did have a struggle in the middle of the Big East where they were losing. They lost like 6 of 8 games. They were really struggling, but they started to get things figured out toward the end of the season. They barely lost to Marquette in the Big East tournament, and Marquette is another sleeper pick for a lot of people as a team that could go far in the tournament. So I think if you look at UConn, they're really talented. As long as they don't overlook Iona, they have a good shot to win. I think they'll find a way. You look at TCU / Arizona State, Nevada. I think that TCU is a team that on paper is way better than a 6 seed. Mike Miles' injury really dropped them in the Big 12. When he was healthy and playing at a high level, they won at Kansas by 23. And then he got hurt and he missed like 5 or 6 games, and TCU lost almost every one of those games. And that really dropped their seeding. They'd have been a 3 or 4 seed if Mike Miles never got hurt, because they lost a lot of games they wouldn't have lost. So I think if you look at TCU that way, they're a really good team, and they're way better than Arizona State or Nevada.
Mhm.
But TCU, to me, hasn't played as well since his injury. I think even though he's come back, I think they still are a bit rusty and haven't played as well. But I still think TCU is the better team than both, and as long as they play a C+ or a B- level game, I think TCU will win. I think they have a better chance to win. You look at Gonzaga and Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon's an interesting team because you look at them in the regular season. They have a great home environment. They have actually one of the best home environments in college basketball for a small school like Grand Canyon is. I mean, they get some loud, atmospheres in their building on their own floor. They're a scrappy team. They could be dangerous. And Gonzaga, their guard plays weak. And when your guard play is weak, you are beatable in March, especially by these smaller schools that have good guards. So I could see an upset here. I will lean Gonzaga. I think that Mark Few will find the way not to get upset in the first round. I think Gonzaga has the potential to go decently far in this tournament, but I could see an upset. This is a sneakily good game, but I do think Gonzaga will find a way. You look at Northwestern, Boise State. Northwestern's in their second NCAA tournament ever, which is crazy that this is only their second. They made it in 2017, which was amazing. And I think Northwestern's going to do everything they possibly can to win with Boo Buie and Chase Aldiche, with the fact that this is only their second NCAA tournament. But Boise State is a great team. The Mountain West was a great conference this year. Leon Rice is a great head coach for Boise State. His son, Max Rice, is a great player. You've got Tyson Dagenhart. He's a really good player for Boise State. Overall, you just look at Boise State. They're a team that can hang with a lot of Power 5 teams. And if Northwestern overlooks Boise State at all, which I don't think they will because they haven't been in the tournament a lot, then I think that Northwestern can get the win if they don't overlook them. But if they do overlook them, Boise State could shellac them. I mean, it's one of those things. Northwestern has to play really hard and well in this game, and they're not a team that's used to the tournament, so that could be a problem. And Boise State is a team that's used to the tournament, so I'm going to lean Boise State as well. I think Northwestern can win. It would be really cool for them to be able to get, one of their only wins in tournament history. But, for them, because they've barely made the tournament in their whole entire program history. But I think that Boise State has a better chance. They have more experience. And UCLA, UNC Asheville, I mean, this is a game where you look at UNC Asheville, and they have a weapon in Drew Pember. He's a 7-footer who played at Tennessee for a year, but then he entered the transfer portal because he wasn't playing at Tennessee. And he's a guy that could put up 40. He shoots threes. He's a really good big man for UNC Asheville. He can shoot threes. He's a good player in the post, and he does so much for their offense. He's a really dangerous player. So if UCLA, who their center plays a little weak right now because of Dim Bona, he's been injured, and he should be able to play in this game, but he might not be 100%. And besides him, UCLA does not have a lot of center depth. Drew Pember could light up UCLA. And if he puts up 35, 40 points, there's a chance UCLA goes down. But if they can hold him to 25, I think UNC Asheville doesn't have enough on the rest of their team. And I think UCLA with Jaime Jaquez, Tiger Campbell, and Amari Bailey, they'll have enough to win. So I will lean UCLA, but I could see an upset here as well.
Yeah. I just think with UCLA, it's kind of hard to see the upset. I mean, it's obviously there, but so let me run through the East here real quick. So I'm going to go Purdue, FAU, because Memphis, FAU one could be close, tight. Duke, Oral Roberts. Duke is not the same. I'm going to go out on a limb and go Oral. Tennessee, Louisiana. Give me Tennessee. Even though they've had their ups and downs this year. Kentucky, Providence. Give me the Cats. I have more faith in Kentucky than I do Providence. Plus, I think I'm split on that one. Kansas State, Montana State. There is potential for an upset here, but give me the Wildcats, Kansas State. All right. So 116, 8-9, 7-10, 2-15 are all taking place in the great city, one of the best cities in our nation, Columbus, Ohio, right here. And I get to see the next one, Michigan State, USC, and I think I get to see Vermont, Marquette. I'm actually going to go with the fight-ons here. Give me the Trojans over Michigan State. I have more faith in USC than Michigan State. And Marquette, Vermont, dude, it's the school of Dwayne frickin' Wade. Give me Marquette all day.
And Tom Crean.
And then real quickly, because I've got an emergency, so I'm going to give you my Final Four here and my championship prediction. So far, I think I'm going to at least give you mine each week as we advance through. Mm-hmm. So my Final Four as it currently stands: Alabama, Houston, Kansas, Purdue. I don't know if these are the matchups because I'm not looking at the brackets. So I don't know which region faces which.
Yeah, it's tough to do that so far out.
But I'm going to go Houston and Kansas in the championship. And I think even though Kansas is likely to repeat in this situation, I'm going to go out on a limb and give you yet again another Cinderella, because in my two brackets I have UCLA and Arizona winning it all. I am giving you the year of the Cinderella. It will be, currently as it stands, the Houston Cougars to win it all and cut down the nets.
Yeah, to quickly go down this region real quick as well. Clemmo said, Mark, if you can't handle this liquor. That's funny. But you look at this region, you've got Purdue. I mean, they're a team that has had struggles to advance in the tournament based on their style of play with their centers, in the past. And even with Zach Edey, it's just tough for them to advance far. And their guard play is a bit weak at times, but I do think they should get by their first opponent. You look at Memphis, Florida Atlantic. Florida Atlantic's a great team out of Conference USA. Yes, they've only lost 3 times. They're a great team, and I think they have the potential to maybe advance, in this game and maybe even give fits to Purdue if they were able to win. But I'm going to lean Memphis. Memphis has a lot of talent. They're playing well at the right time. And I think that overall, Memphis is a team that, could be really dangerous if they can get out of, to the Sweet 16, get out of this region and advance further down the tournament. They have a lot of talent. Penny Hardaway has his team playing really good basketball right now, so I'm going to lean Memphis. Duke, Oral Roberts. Yes, Oral Roberts is Max Amos, and he's a fantastic player. He's a bucket getter, and they have a lot of other players as well that are really actually talented and pretty good. But I do think Duke is peaking at the right time. They're playing much better basketball. I don't think this was a good matchup for Oral Roberts. I think that Oral Roberts needed, a better opponent to play that they could potentially get an upset on. I think Duke will be really tough for them. I think they could get it done. But I will lean Duke in this one. Tennessee, Louisiana. I don't have a lot of faith in Tennessee, just like I don't have a lot of faith in Virginia. I think Tennessee is a team that can easily be upset here because they have had struggles to advance far in the tournament. Rick Barnes is a coach that he's had struggles to advance in the tournament when he was at Texas, and when he was now at Tennessee, he struggled to do that. So I can see them getting upset. They don't have Zakai Ziegler as well, but I will lean Tennessee. I think they'll find a way to get it done. But I do have a hard time seeing them advance far, but you never know. Kentucky, Providence. I could see Providence winning. I think Ed Cooley's done a great job with his team. Bryce Hopkins, the former Kentucky player, who's now on Providence. I think he's going to play a really good game, against his former team. But I do think that looking at Kentucky's roster overall, I think Oscar Tshiebwe is going to give Providence fits. I think if Kentucky could get one of C.J. Frederick, Antonio Reeves, or Kassan Wallace to make shots, I think they'll find a way to win. So I'm going to lean Kentucky as well, but I'm not super confident in that one as I normally would be. You look at Kansas State, Montana State. Montana State's a good team out of the Big Sky, but Kansas State's a really good team. Jerome Tang is a fantastic coach in his first year as the head coach at Kansas State after being an assistant at Baylor for a long time. He's done a great job. Keontae Johnson, he's a great story after his collapse on the floor at Florida a couple years ago. He's an awesome story. Marquise Noel, a 5'8 guard who is a walking bucket, and he's a great passer. I think Kansas State has a lot of firepower. I think they'll find a way to win. Michigan State, USC is a tough one. I'm kind of slipping on who I picked in this one or leaned towards when I did with Austin. I think I leaned USC because Michigan State's not a very deep team, and even though Tom Izzo is a great coach, I think that potentially they could lose this one because of the fact that overall they just don't have a deep roster, and you have to have, a lot of depth and talent to win. I think they're a good team, and Tyson Walker can get really hot from three, then they could win. But I think I'll lean USC if I can recall, but I'll have to go back and look. But USC is Boogie Ellis and Andy Enfield, the coach that led Florida Gulf Coast to the Sweet 16 way back when. He's had a really solid tenure at USC, and he usually has his Trojans advancing at least somewhat through the tournament, so I think they'll find a way. And Marquette, Vermont, like you said, the school of Dwayne Wade and Tom Crean. Marquette's a really good team this year. Shaka Smart, he's always been known for his defense, but his team has offense this year as well. They got a great team on offense and defense. Tyler Kolek's a great guard. He won Big East Player of the Year. Great passer, great shooter. He's definitely improved from where he was a year ago. And Vermont, they're a good team out of the America East Conference. But they have a lot of experience as well, but I don't think they're going to have enough firepower to hang with Marquette. I'm definitely going to lean Marquette. In this one, they should be able to get the win if they play a C+ or better game. Final four picks, it's really tough. I do think potentially, I could see Duke being a sleeper Final Four team or UConn. But I do think for the other teams for sure, I'm going to go with probably Alabama. I think they're going to go all the way. I think Kansas will as well. And I'm pretty high on Houston, so I would have to agree with you. But I do think for a sleeper pick, someone out of Marquette, UConn, or Duke. I like those three teams a lot. I think one of those three will go far. I guess to make it more, reasonable, I'll go Marquette as the other one, but I could see Duke or UConn going all the way as well. But I probably say Marquette is the fourth team. And for the national champion, just to be spicy right now, I'll probably take Houston and Marquette, and probably would say Houston would win as well. I think Kansas could go all the way, and that's just a really early pick that I'm just thinking of right now. It definitely will change based on results and how the teams are looking, but Houston has a really good shot to go all the way, and it should be a lot of fun. As Clint Moses says, Duke's 2 7-footers will block everything. I'm thinking 10 blocks, but I do think that overall this is going to be a great tournament. I could see up to 10 teams winning the whole thing. I think Houston, if they can get healthy, could be a team that goes all the way. But I have a lot of stock in Marquette, Kansas. I think even Duke could somehow go all the way. You never know. There's a lot of really good teams this year. UCLA, if they can get relatively healthy. Arizona, just so many good teams that this year's tournament, 2023 March Madness, could be one of the best yet. They're all great, but this year has a lot of parity. And that's what's so awesome. There's no clear-cut top-tier teams. It's just a lot of teams that are beatable, and it should make for a lot of fun this March Madness. And I'm looking forward to it. You got any final thoughts, Mike? Well, I guess since Mike isn't here, I guess to wrap up, thank you guys so much for being here on Unscripted with Mike and Jeffrey. It was a great show. We went through a recap of the Week 4 XFL games. We did our Week 5 XFL picks. Should be great games. If Mike gets both of the games right, we can tie up. Or now Mike's back, but if not, if I could get a 4-game lead on him. And the March Madness picks, definitely so tough to pick these games. I had a lot more leans than picks, actually, but still, you kind of get my thoughts on who I'm feeling, who should win. But it should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it, and thanks, everybody, for being here for sure.
Yeah, thanks everybody for being here. Definitely. We've got things coming in the works. I'm sure Jeffrey's got, streams that working on putting together.
Hope to see everybody there. I might be going live tonight for the Arizona State Nevada game. Not 100%, but I might be going live again tonight, so hopefully you guys are here.
I'm trying to look at the Thursday schedule for me and decide what games I'm going to do. So that'll be interesting. So everybody stay tuned to the channels if you haven't already. Like, subscribe, comment, and hope to see you next week.
Thanks for being here, everybody. Should be a fun March Madness.
Yes, sir.
Hopefully XFL as well.
Less likely, but yeah.